3, 2, 1. A very good evening to everyone out there, and welcome to the Hibiscus Coast Astronomical Society special meeting. And as you know, we've got a really awesome speaker today, Mark. He is an award-winning photographer, time-lapse filmmaker, digital visual effects supervisor, and I've seen a number of his presentations over the years, and I've just been totally blown away by his photos and his techniques he uses. So you guys are really all in for a good treat with that. I think most of you will probably recognize the Full Moon Silhouettes film, which I think was the one that gained him international recognition, being shown on CNN, BBC, NASA, and all sorts of other places. He's won the Astronomy Photographer of the Year in 2013, and yeah, just really amazing stuff. So yeah, we're very, very lucky to have him, and yeah, welcome to you, Mark.
Thanks so much. It's good to be here.
So without any further ado, I think let me just pop into the chat and make sure that people are there. Yeah, so if you guys want to ask Mark any questions, as usual, just in the little chat box on YouTube, and then I will forward on the questions to him. Otherwise, it's all over to you, Mark.
Cool, thanks. Yeah, I guess tonight I'll just go through and show you a few things I've done, a bit of a slideshow. But certainly if there's any questions, we can go off and into another direction, and I can talk about that kind of thing as well. I plan to show, where I've been over the last, I guess it's been 10 or 12 years now, which I've been 12 years I've been doing astrophotography. And I originally came from Australia to work on a little film called Lord of the Rings back in 2003, and I'm meant to be here for 6 months, and I'm still here now, it's almost 19 years later now. So yeah, it's certainly home, and New Zealand is one hell of a place, which I'm so fortunate to have ended up in, especially for astrophotography. When I was at home in Australia, I grew up on the beaches and surfing and beach lifestyle. And honestly, that's the kind of photography I was doing. I was doing surf and beach lifestyle photography. And when I arrived in Wellington, I turned up at Lowell Bay, local here. And the first day was actually pretty good surfing. It was a really nice day. So I was quite happy about that. But I came back the next day and there was basically no surf for 6 months. And it was freezing cold, so I was coming into winter. So at that point, I decided that I should try some other sort of photography, and I started getting into landscape photography, and because there's some beautiful landscapes, obviously, in New Zealand. But then it was a trip out to the Wairarapa, which is, it's about an hour's drive to the good astro locations, about 2 hours drive for me. And one night I just came out, I came out at night there and looked up, and it was a perfectly clear night, and it was the most incredible starry night ever, and I'd never seen stars like it. I just couldn't believe it. Because I grew up on the Gold Coast, basically, and high-rise buildings and lots of lights there, so you don't get to see many stars. But this just blew me away, and I think I went straight in, grabbed my camera, went out to take a photo, and I took a photo, and I looked on the back of the LCD, and I was actually quite disappointed because I could see more stars with my naked eye compared to what I could see on the back of the LCD. So obviously at that point I had a lot to learn, and I spent a year or so trying to get away and learning all this stuff. So it took me a while to learn, but it's all about experimenting, and I have a artistic background. I went to college to graphic design. I've ended up in the film industry, so it all goes hand in hand, but I've also shot photography all the way through. So yeah, and I'm based in Wellington, and that's a capital city, obviously, but it's a pretty amazing place for a capital city because you can see the Milky Way from the capital city, which is quite unheard of in lots of parts in the world. and we're really lucky here. And I do spend a lot of time just around the local area. I don't necessarily have to travel very far at all. I'm like 5 minutes away from the local Astro spot, and that's on the south coast there. And another 15 minutes away from more darker skies down at Red Rocks. So I do spend a lot of time on the around Red Rocks and the south coast, and I've spent many years taking photos out there. So I thought I'd start off the night with a bit of a homage to the south coast of New Zealand, of Wellington, and I'll play you this video.
The south coast of Wellington, New Zealand. When the southerly wind blows, it can be raw and unforgiving. But its rugged landscape can also be a thing of natural beauty. And that's why I keep coming out here, time after time, to photograph this amazing environment, to capture the rawness in my own way. But the thing I love the most about the south coast is when day turns to night, it becomes a whole new world.
Cool. Unfortunately, I have to apologize for the video choppiness. Obviously, with the network and everything like that, it may be a bit choppy, but you get the kind of idea. But yeah, the south coast is sort of a place which I love going, and I've had over the years when I started posting photos on social media and so forth, I had lots of interest, and I decided to start teaching people how to do astrophotography like I taught myself. And probably about 6 years ago, I started just having like a free for all astro, come out to the south coast and learn how to do astrophotography. It wasn't really a structured thing. It was just basically come out and have a go. I was probably expecting about 20 or 30 people, but I ended up getting 300 people, which was pretty amazing. The year after, around the same thing again, and I had about 600 people, and it actually caused a traffic jam getting out there. So the following year, we had to get a road plan, and we blocked roads and we bussed people in, which was pretty incredible. And it was one of those freezing cold, southerly blowing Wellington evenings, and we ended up with about 1,000 people out there. So it was really, really awesome that that all these people just wanted to come out and just enjoy the night sky. Like, I did do a brief of how to take photos of the night sky. I don't think many people really cared about that. I just wanted to get out there and actually take photos. Yeah, in this photo you can see the road closed for astrophotography night, which is, you don't see that too often. And we had a rain date too, but luckily we didn't have to use the rain date. But yeah, here you can see there's like, this is looking in one direction, but behind me there was twice as many people as well. So there was about 1,000 people there that night, which is pretty crazy. And you can see what everyone's wearing. So it was pretty cold, but I think everyone had a pretty good night. And I'll just play this little time lapse that we shot, but you can see it's probably an astrophotographer's nightmare because everyone was wearing head torches and spinning lights around and all sorts of stuff. But it was such an amazing experience just seeing all these people out there having a go. One of the years we were lucky enough to get aurora activity visible to the naked eye, which is quite rare to the naked eye on the south coast of Wellington. So we were so fortunate that year. But it's just so good to be able to share that with so many people. And a couple of other local haunts of mine. This place here, Breaker Bay, it's about 5 minutes down the road from me, so it's really convenient, and it's fairly dark. You can see in this photo there's a bit of light pollution throughout, which actually helps the photo, I thought. And you don't have to expose for as long. And obviously the Milky Way there, it was earlier in the year, say March, where it rises to the east there. So that's certainly a nice place to go at night. And you do see lots of, you climb up there on those tracks and you see a lot of red head torches popping up every now and then. So it's quite a popular place in Wellington. This one here, Wanui Yamada, it's probably about an hour's drive out from me. You have to go out through the hut and down this road, which is a dead end road. They usually have lots of boy races down there and burnt out cars, but it's a pretty spectacular place to shoot astrophotography, and it is very dark down there. It's not quite as good as, you know, some of our dark sky reserves, but it's actually not far off, and it's pretty amazing just to travel an hour out of the capital city and have a location like this. So very, very fortunate where I am, like a lot of people are in New Zealand. And you know, as we mentioned earlier on, there's that full moon silhouettes video, which I shot. This isn't actually the video, and a lot of people who have seen the video get confused and think this is a frame from the video, and it's actually not. So I shot the video in about the end of January, and it was 2013, and I was, you know, the whole story to that was just incredible in itself. It goes from uploading it over, firstly capturing it. It took me about a year to capture it, and everything went wrong that could go wrong over a year. And then finally one night it was perfect conditions and I ended up capturing it. So I was really stoked about that. And I had no idea what the video meant. And I edited it together with found some music, and 3 o'clock in the morning, I uploaded it to Vimeo. And, you know, by the next morning, there was thousands of views. And then by the afternoon, there was hundreds of thousands of views. And by the end of the week, there was millions of views of this video. So it went absolutely viral, and I just was overwhelmed with, you know, emails from all over the world. I had media from all over the world. And yeah, the funny thing was that I had all the people who doubted me as well, saying, oh, you know, it's a composite. You know, like these days, a lot of people do composite their big moons into things because it's an easy thing to do. Planning a big moon shoot, not everyone has a super telephoto lens. So they'll go out and shoot with a longer lens, and then they'll go and shoot out a wide shot and composite the two together. So a lot of people thought the video was just that. It was just a composite because I worked at Weta Digital. So I'd shot in the back of Peter Jackson's backlot or something like that. But it was interesting. I had a few scientists and mathematicians sort of contact me. And there was this guy from the US somewhere. He was a maths teacher. And he wanted to know all this information, like how far I was from the people, how far the moon was at the time, you know, my angle of viewing it. And I sent him a map and everything like that, and what I knew. He wanted to know how tall the people were. I was like, I don't know, average height person. And he went away and he came back about a day later and he'd say, hey, I did the maths and it's actually real. The video is real. I said, yeah, of course it's real. So he'd actually done his work and worked it out and worked it as real. And he asked me if he could use it for his students at school. And they used it in assignments to work out, you know, how far I would have had to have been to shoot the moon this big and you know, all that kind of stuff, which I don't understand. But people really loved it. Like that, you know, there's so many emails and things from it. So it was a really amazing experience. And then all of a sudden I'm in the spotlight. And of course I had so many people emailing me and saying, oh, you've got to get me a print, get me a print. And I said, well, actually I can't print because it's a video. So it's really low resolution. So I thought, well, I need to go and shoot a photo of it. And this is what this is. I went out a month later after taking a year to get the first one. And I borrowed, actually for this one, I borrowed an 800mm lens. The video I shot, I had a 500mm prime lens and a 2x teleconverter. So about 1,000 millimeters in focal length. For this one here, I borrowed an 800mm lens and I had a 1.4x teleconverter, only because I get a bit better quality out of that one. And this is just a month later. It's basically the next full moon, and it just all fell into place, and I got this shot. So yeah, a lot of people do confuse this, but yeah, I was so lucky to get this photo as well.
So, Mark, the video, I believe that's on your website,
Yeah.
theartofnight.com.
Yeah, it's on my website, but it's also on my YouTube channel as well, which is The Art of Night. So you can find that and all the other videos that I'll play tonight as well. So yeah, go and check it out.
So I've added the link to the Art of Night in the video in the chat on YouTube. So if you guys want to check it out, there it is.
Awesome. Saves me playing it. Everyone can go and watch it in real time instead of the choppy video.
We don't mind the choppy video.
Yeah, that's all right. Yeah, so going on from the moon silhouettes, it's like, what do I do now? Do I go back and shooting normal astrophotography? And that's what I did, but I also wanted to spend a lot of time planning and trying to come up with ideas of new things to do that may not have been done before. And so that was my passion for a while. I spent a lot of time out in the Wairarapa, because it is dark, and I've been to most of the dark sky locations in New Zealand, down in the Mackenzie Basin and Great Barrier Island as well, and it's really dark. But the Wairarapa is just as dark as well. So we're really lucky to be able to go out there, and they are trying to get a dark sky reserve out there as well. And I hear they're not far off, so that'll be great if we get another one in New Zealand. So I went out and I spent a lot of time out at Cape Palliser. Cape Palliser was my favorite location. There was just variety out there. It was remote. You don't get many people out there whatsoever. You have this lighthouse at the Cape there, which is also an interesting subject for astrophotography. People, again, with this particular photo, they go, oh yeah, it must be a composite because you got a lighthouse and then you got the Milky Way. So how do you expose for both? Well, the thing is that the lighthouse the beam is, condensed beam. So the actual light that it's emitting isn't that strong. So you can get photos of the Milky Way behind a lighthouse. And especially with this shot here, I was looking straight up. So you don't get a direct line with the light, you just get the glow of it. So that's why I was able to expose this. This is also actually a frame from a time lapse. So I shot a time lapse below the lighthouse of the Milky Way, basically rotating. I don't think I have that here, but it was an interesting night because this is what I planned. I planned to come out here, go and shoot this time lapse, and be done with it. And to get up to this lighthouse, there's like 280 steps you got to walk up to get up there. So I've carried all my time lapse gear up there and set it up, and then just basically carried all my gear back down and jumped in the back of the car and went to sleep. And not thinking much of it, I set my alarm to get up the next morning, I think, which was around 5 a.m. or so. The alarm went off, and as I got out of the car, I sort of looked out, and there was this amazing scene. The Milky Way by that point had started to set towards the west. So you had the lighthouse here, and then the Milky Way sort of expanding straight out from the lighthouse. I thought, oh my God, I've got to take that photo. And I turned around half asleep trying to get my gear out, and there was no gear in the car because it was all up at the lighthouse. And because it was 5 a.m. in the morning, first light wasn't too far away. So I ran as fast as I can up those 280 steps, grabbed my gear, come back down, set it up. I was lucky I had a Gigapan robotic head with me. So I could shoot a large pano automatically with that. And that's exactly what I did, because I just didn't have time to think about composition. I thought I'm just going to shoot a 360 degree pano with this. So the image I ended up getting out of it was this, which is, some of you may have seen this image too. It's guiding light to the stars, I call it. This is about 270 degrees of complete 360 degree image. And it's just how I like to crop it. And I'll actually show you I think I've got the scene, and it's a seamless image, by the way. So I can keep playing this and it'll just keep going around, the 360 degree. The interesting thing is, like, I had the Milky Way over there, and it's because I was shooting over about a half an hour period. You can see the zodiacal light starts to appear over here to the east, which was something I didn't realize I had captured until after the fact. So that was a pretty good score as well. But yeah, I was quite happy with that image, and I ended up entering it into the Astronomy Photographer of the Year, and it ended up winning, which I was amazed by. That was 2013. So I had full moon silhouettes and then Astronomy Photographer of the Year, and I not only won with this image, I also won a category with that moon image as well. So 2 categories, won the whole thing overall, and then I had moon silhouettes on top of that. So it was a full-on year. So I was very lucky. But yeah, a lot of people are interested in, okay, so how do you shoot these images? So this one here, as I mentioned before, it's pano 360 degrees horizontally. So the field of view is around 360 degrees by 94.7 degrees vertically. 35 images in total, taken over a 23-minute time frame. And each image was a 30-second shutter at f2.8 ISO 3200. Back then in 2013, I used to shoot. That was pretty much my go-to settings for the whole time. These days, I vary my settings a lot more, and I'm usually shooting around 6400 ISO for a single image, but it depends what I'm doing. But back then, this is my go-to settings, and pretty much everything I shot was with these settings. And I think it was on a Canon 5D Mark III or something, which I shot this image on. So yeah, and then it comes around to stitching the whole image together. So here you can kind of see all the numbers. So there are all the images, the individual patches, tiles that would get all stitched together. You can see up here that this is sort of grayed out a bit. This is how I cropped the image in the end. So I didn't use all this information up high here. But you can see this is one of the tiles. And when you put it into the stitching app, this is the app I'm using here is Auto Pano Giga, which unfortunately they are no more. I still have the app and I still use it. But I also use PT GUI these days as well, because it's just as good, has different tools as well, and it's supported. So I use a combination of both. But you can see here how it's not like the rectangular image that you would expect out of your camera. So the reason for that is because it's being projected. So it's a cylindrical projection. So it's being projected on the cylinder. So that's why it's shaped like that. And that was just one of the 20 odd images which I shot to make this image up.
So I've got a question from Sam. He says, what is your go-to camera body for astrophotography now?
Well, currently my go-to camera for astrophotography is a Nikon D850. I jumped from the Canon ship to Nikon about 2 years ago now. But honestly, I've used so many, like I haven't used Sony. Everyone seems to be jumping on the Sony ship these days, and that's good. Nikon uses Sony sensors anyway. But Canon, they're just as good. Like I had a 6D, Canon 6D for years, and such a good camera. And that was really my go-to astro camera. I tried it. I got a Canon 6D too, and actually the original Canon 6D was just as good, if not better. So it's a bit of a disappointment getting the Canon 6D too. So if you can find them cheap, they're definitely worth getting for astro. They're also a full frame camera as well, which is great. Yeah, so the D850 is certainly a step up in the world, as far as I get a lot more dynamic range and a much higher resolution image out of it, and that's mainly why I went for that. The dynamic range was a big thing for me, but honestly, between the Canon, the Sonys, and the Nikon these days, they're all good cameras. There's no bad cameras. If you're looking at a middle of the range model, you can't go wrong, whichever brand. Just whatever suits you best. If you're starting out, you might want to try it for the Sonys. But if you already are getting into your photography and you have your lenses already, and the Canon lenses, stick with Canon. It's quite expensive to change brands unless you just got one lens and one camera body. And again, if you've got Nikon bodies, go there as well. And there's also third-party lenses too, which are getting better and better. I shoot with the Sigma Arts, which are quite a fine third-party lens. But a couple of years ago, I wouldn't have looked at third-party lenses, but they're really up their games, and they're producing some really cool stuff really nice lenses, nice glass, and crisp and sharp. So yeah, it's definitely having a look out there. There's quite a lot of choice.
Great, thanks.
Cool. So yeah, just so getting back to this this pano here. This is basically just the software working out what works with what, how to stitch it together. The green boxes, you can see numbers. There's like a 4.16, 2.5. They rate the connection between the two images, neighboring images, to how well they can stitch them together. So green means good. Orange, not that bad, but not great either. Red is terrible. So usually when you get a red sector, you'll end up going in there and placing your own locators. So the software knows which points to match up. And by what I mean by points is these things here. So thankfully, shooting the night sky is pretty cool because you get lots of points. You've got stars everywhere. So you can see that between these two images, the neighboring images, that they've matched up points on either side of the image. So you can see a 70 there, 70 there. Again, it's a scale, so the red is bad, the two, so you usually delete the reds and filter out the reds and just keep the greens, and it'll do the stitch for you. So it's a pretty amazing what stitching software can do. A lot of people say, well, I've got Lightroom and that's good enough for me. And yeah, Lightroom's great, and Photoshop as well, and it'll do the job for like single road images quite well. I certainly do use it. If I'm just doing a single road image, you can keep your image in RAW, whereas for this stitching software, you have to convert them to TIFFs, 16-bit TIFFs, which is still fine. But yeah, when you get into these monster images, multi-row, multi-column images, you really need to go to a Pano software, Pano specific software, because they have the tools to be able to edit and get you a really good, accurate result. And that's why I use this. But certainly still use Photoshop and Lightroom for stitching panos together. What else have I got here? Oh yeah, I'll take you back to, so it's interesting. I'll show you between, so I shot this image in 2013 and I shot this image this year. So you can see that my technique has changed a little bit, like as far as the processing and shooting technique. So this one here is, there's lack of color. It's not like, it's still a pretty good image. Like if I saw someone shoot an image like that, I'll go, that's pretty cool. But you can really step up your images. This one here is actually a tracked image. So I used the star tracker to shoot this, and you can get so much more detail out of the night sky, nebula detail, and so forth. But it's the same technique. I shoot with a robotic head for this, makes it easier for me, and I have the tracker underneath it, so it's rotating, and the robotic head is on top. It gets quite complicated, but you can get really nice results out of it. So my processing techniques have certainly changed between here and here. I usually spend a bit more time processing these days, just to get really clean images and a really good result, best result I can. Mainly, it's hard to quantify because I do it in stages. So I'll stitch it. I'll in Lightroom. I'll process it, and then I'll save it out, save the TIFFs out, and then I'll stitch it, and then I'll bring it back into Lightroom again, do some more work, and then I'll probably go into Photoshop just to touch it up and just make sure it's all clean and everything like that. But let me just have a look. See if I can get this up.
Sorry, for those listening, I forgot to press a button there. So what I was asking Mark is how long it took to do one of those images, sort of the processing side.
Yeah, yeah. So that's, I haven't really answered that question, have I? I guess it can be an hour, and it could be several hours, like 8 hours even. It depends what I'm trying to achieve or what I want to do. I try not to spend too much time on an image, and usually what I'll do is I'll work on it, then go away and come back with it with a fresh pair of eyes, just to look at it again, because I kick myself every time I try and process an image, hurry up, process it, and then try and get it out on social media or something. I look on social media and the next morning I think, what the hell was I thinking? So I'll usually process it, go away, come back, do more processing, go away, and that process may happen 3 or 4 times. Sometimes I'll get it in one, which I'm happy, but I have a rule where I never process an image and post somewhere on the same day. I always give it a overnight, so I can come back to it and look at it and say, yeah, I'm pretty happy with that now. Or I say, no, what the hell was I thinking? So I'll keep processing. So that's my rule. Never process and post. And I think I have another one as well, which I do break every now and then. If I'm on a trip somewhere and I'm shooting astro, I try not to process on those trips, because I don't know, you just so much else going on trying to just capture the images, let alone processing them as well. So I'll usually wait till I get home. Like, I might do a basic process, but I'll usually wait till I get home, have a good look at them, and then process them. But this Lightroom here, this is actually a tile from that image. So this is zooming. This is 100%. So it's a track shot. So you don't have star trailing, which is quite nice. But just to give you an idea, that's before processing. That's after that. So that's my initial process. So that's before and that's after. So I don't do too much to it. As far as my settings on that one, this one was a 30-second exposure. I had the aperture at f2.8, and I was shooting on a 40mm. I was shooting on a Sigma Art 40mm. So that lens is rated, I think, 1.8, f1.8, 1.4. Yeah, so 30 seconds at f2.8 and ISO of 1600. So I kept my ISO fairly low as well. But the interesting thing, and this is what I love about the Nikons, is you have a look at this here compared to the actual final image, and you say, well, this is black. There's no information in there whatsoever. That's what you would think. But there is information there. Like, you blow it out, but there's certainly information there, which is so nice with the Nikon lenses, and that you can actually pull all that detail out. But again, that's after processing. So that's before, that's after. So I'll do a basic process, and then I stitch it all together, and then I'll come back and do some more processing. And eventually I'll get a final image out of it. But that's pretty much the tiles from the image I just showed you.
So your photos, are they captured in RAW format or?
Yes, definitely. So definitely capture your photos in RAW. Don't use JPEG. JPEG is a very compression codec, so you just can't pull that detail out of it. Whereas RAW captures all the information from the sensor, and you can push things way further than what you would normally push things. I can go wherever I want with that image. So yeah, it's that's pretty much that's my processing, and eventually you get this image out of it, and you can see how much detail from that hillside there that was black to this amount of detail. So that's why I like Nikon, because of the dynamic range. The higher end models of Canon pretty much do the same, and definitely the Sony as well. So all modern cameras these days have good sensors, if you're willing to spend the money for the higher end ones at least. So yeah, it's an interesting comparison to where I was back in 2013 to where I am now.
So I've got another question. Sorry.
Yes.
SWB asks, can you explain your use of the Star Tracker app you mentioned?
Star Tracker? Oh, the Star Tracker app. This is the Star Tracker, Skywatcher, one of the portable ones I use. So it's not actually an app; it's actual hardware. Oh, hang on. See if I can find. I might have a photo of it. Let me see. Hang on. Because I do actually take photos of my gear as well. Here we go. Okay, this is perfect. Here it is here. So that device on the bottom is my star tracker. So it rotates, same rotation as the Earth. And on top of this, I have a SERP pan and tilt motion control device. But you can also shoot in pano mode. So this is usually for time lapse, but you can set up to shoot in pano mode as well. So as this rotates around with the Earth, this thing will turn around, shoot your tiles, each tile, and do it that way. So that's exactly how I use it. It looks very top heavy, and it kind of is, but it's quite stable. It's surprising how stable it is. But it's not something that you just turn up and set up straight away. It takes a little time to set up your tracker and get the alignment. And when I do alignment, my alignment's fairly rough. I don't really do polar alignment as such. I basically find south on the compass, point it south. I kind of know where the South Pole is in the sky, make sure I'm pointing in that direction and just have my latitude correct. And that's my rough alignment. And I usually get a pretty good, I've shot up to 70 mil, and I usually can shoot about a minute before it sort of gets out of, you start seeing the star trailing. So yeah, that's pretty much how I use it. And it's not something I'm usually just, because I'm quite impatient, I just usually go down there and just set my tripod up and put my camera on, just shoot single images. But now I really want a good quality image, so I start and spend the time doing this kind of thing, which, you know, it's something certainly changed for me in the last couple of years. And you can tell the images, you just get such a better result out of it. So hopefully that answers the question.
Yeah, I think that more than answers it. So yeah, just for some of the new people out there that maybe don't know much about astrophotography, you know, what Mark is using that for is basically to keep all the stars in the correct spot, because as you know, at night the stars appear to move across the sky. So if you take your photo over a period of time, you'll end up with the trails behind the stars when you actually need little pinpoints. Yeah. So it's the same as what we use, or similar to what we use on our telescopes, to sort of keep track of a particular star that we're looking at. And so if you've got a go-to mount, obviously this is a lot more advanced.
Yeah, I'm just seeing if I have an example of a tracked versus an untracked, and I think I do actually. Yeah, so this you can't really see it here because it's quite a short exposure. This is, and this is a 10-second exposure on a 40 mil, but there is a little bit of length in these stars. They are star trailing. So that was shot without the tracker. And then if I go back to one of the other images I had, so you can see here, these are pinpoint stars, so you don't get any star trailing whatsoever. So that's the difference between shooting off a tripod and shooting with a tracker. You just get so much more detail in your night sky without the trailing. So that's why I do that. Cool. What else can I show you guys? Yeah, this is another photo out of Cape Palliser. This is actually a single frame from a time lapse. Oops, sorry. No, hang on. I lost control here. So there's a single frame from a time lapse. A lot of people ask me about this one again. How do you shoot a fire like this with the night sky in a single exposure? It must be a composite. It's actually not a composite. It's a single exposure. But the thing is, the trick is that this fire had no flames whatsoever. This fire was just hot coals. That's all it was. And I had a stick, which I was stoking the hot coals with, and that's why you get these sparks coming out. But there was definitely no flames in this fire. But because you're exposing for the night sky, you get the glow from the fire, and it looks like the fire is burning. So that's a little tip if you want to shoot fires at night in single exposures with the Milky Way. That's one way I do it. This video is kind of showing you that's the actual time lapse. So you can see the time lapse there. You see at some point I stand up with my stick and walk away. But this is the motion controlled time lapse. So basically the camera is on a rail and it moves along one frame at a time and takes a photo each time. And that's why you get this camera move. And that's the same device, well, kind of like the same device I use on my tracker, but for time lapse. This here gives you, this is just me processing really quickly, like just a single frame for the time lapse. Like for these time lapses, I don't spend too much time processing, simply because if you over process an image for a time lapse, it'll show up in your time lapse. You'll see all the artifacts in the world. So I keep my time lapse processing quite simple, simply because that's as much as you can push it. You can get away with processing just a still image a lot more, but once you put it in motion, you'll see the issues between the frames. This one here. So this is again over in the wire wrapper. This is Palliser Bay in here. And again, looking east. That was Jupiter. That was a few years ago now when I shot this one. But the difference here, this wasn't on a tracker. This was shot on a tripod, and I actually stacked these images to get a better result. So basically, for those out there who don't understand what tracking is, you take, say, a handful of photos. In this case, I took 15 photos, same settings, just keep taking them. And the idea is that you stack them all together, average out the pixels, and you get a better quality image out of it. There's specific software that does it. I'll sort of show you, give you a bit of an idea. So there's my 15 images in succession, each one the same exposure and setting. The unprocessed images are all stacked into layers like so. And by averaging the pixels between them, you get a lot less noise and better detail in the image. I'm not sure whether you can see the detail here because we're probably a little compressed, but this is a single image shot on the Nikon D850 f14 24mm lens at 40mm. 24-second shutter f4 ISO 8000. So the ISO is quite high here. So you're going to get quite a bit of noise with that high ISO, but it's by stacking the 15 images, that's what I get out of it. So I'm not sure if you can see the detail there, but that's before and that's after. And I haven't done any noise reduction whatsoever here. This is just by stacking the images.
Do you use black frame?
No, no, I don't actually. So yeah, you can use black frames, but I don't use it. I should, but I don't. I just shoot my 15 images and then go home. But yeah, there's a few ways to collect your data and stack them. Mine's fairly simple. It's just shoot 15 images and then stack them. But yeah, the quality that you get out of it is quite amazing. So stacking software, Photoshop, you can do it. It's a manual process. And the star alignment is not always accurate, and the manual process takes a while. You have to do it in layers, like you have to align the sky first, and then you have to composite it with the foreground. So I do not do it with Photoshop. I'm a Mac person, so I use Starry Landscape Stacker, which is amazing. It's unfortunately it's for Mac only. It's a fast and accurate workflow and great results. But if you're on a PC, Sequedator. It's Windows only. It's fast. It's accurate workflow. Great results again. So that's the software for that. Which I use a lot. I use pretty much all my photos I stack these days, unless I'm using tracked images. But yeah, definitely stacking is the way to go, especially if you've got a camera where it's not as high end or it's a little older and you get quite noisy images out of it. Just get out there and shoot your 15 images and then go and stack it. There's more than stacking than what, I just say stacking, but there's plenty of YouTube videos out there. If you do a search for it, there's some really good YouTube videos out there to learn how to do it, but it's definitely worth doing and you get a much better quality image out of it. What else can I show you? Oh, I bet they can't. A lot of people ask me questions about astrophotography, and it's a pretty basic one. But the question I get asked the most is focusing at night. For most people, it seems to be the hardest thing to do ever. And I tend to agree. I've been doing this for a long time, so it's a lot easier for me. But when I was learning, I remember it being quite hard. But the way I use is using the live view method. So just for those out there who don't know what the live view method is, use only manual focus for astrophotography. You will not be able to focus on things with autofocus unless you've got a bright moon or a very bright planet out there. So manual focus is the way to go. Starting point, set your focus to infinity. Not all cameras have infinity. Not all lenses have infinity. If you don't have infinity, you basically focus to the furthest point being in focus, kind of thing, as a starting point. And then you turn live view on in your camera. For those who don't know, on the Nikons, it's the little button on the back, or LV, very similar on all the other brands of cameras. Point your camera at the brightest object in the sky. It can be a star or object, as long as it's bright. And then once you've got the object in the middle, just center in your live view and zoom in. And I'm not saying zoom in with your zoom lens, but on the back of your camera, you've got the little plus sign to zoom in on your LCD. And you just keep zooming in as far as you can go. And then to check the focus, to make sure you're in focus, what I do is I twist my focus ring. So I zoom in and out. So you can see the bokeh and it goes defocused, quite blurry, and then you focus and it gets sharp, and you come the other side and it goes blurry again. So you just find that sweet spot in the middle and you get used to that and you know where that sweet spot is. And that's how you gauge the point. This is the sharpest. So once you're happy with the focus, take a test shot and then zoom right in with your little plus magnifying glass and make sure the stars are very sharp. And if they are, you're good to go. Actually, this is a good example of star trailing. So this is probably a 30-second exposure or something like that. So you get a few more star trails if you zoom right in. But when you've zoomed right out, you don't notice them. So that's all good. All right. I could probably talk about a couple of my adventures if we've got time. I don't know how long I've got, but I'll keep
You've
talking.
got as much as you want.
All right. So adventures. I was lucky enough to get exposure earlier on in the piece, so I get people sort of asking me to go on these adventures, and I of course I'd go on my own adventures, and whether it be New Zealand or overseas, I've had some pretty amazing experiences. So I've been quite lucky as far as that's concerned. And I do share my adventures with my son as well. In this photo here, he was only 8 years old. He's almost 14 now. But we usually do a road trip every year. And this particular road trip, we went down to the South Island and around Kaikoura and Hanmer Springs. And this shot is at Kaikoura Peninsula. And I always wanted a photo with him standing underneath the stars. It's like every dad's dream to get a photo of their son under the stars, especially if they're an astrophotographer. And in this photo here, I set up my tripod in the car park and just put my camera on like a time-lapse mode, so it was shooting every 30 seconds an exposure. And usually he would not stand still for a photo. He just didn't care, didn't want to know about it. But this particular night, he was quite interested. And this photo is me pointing up at the Milky Way, center of the Milky Way here. And he was generally, he was listening to what I was saying. So we got this shot. And it's probably my most favorite shot, astro shot. It's, technically it's probably not as great as what I'm doing now, but it's hanging up in the wall on a big print at my house. And because we're away on the road trip, I called it universal bonding. So that's why I called it. But someone said to me, actually, you should call it large penguin with small boy, because you can kind of see when I'm pointing like that, I look like a penguin, a small boy. So yeah, it's funny how people interpret that.
But as you say, your best photos are not always the ones that are technically perfect, because
no, exactly.
it's the ones that inspire you or create some emotion in you. And in this case as well, I mean, it's very personal to you.
Yeah, exactly.
So,
like I've obviously shot thousands of astro photos over the years, but this is one of my favorites. Continuing the journey, and this is out backcountry up near Hammer Springs. Certainly not technically one of my best photos. I certainly wouldn't do a photo like this today, as in I'd shoot a much better photo of this today. But I waited for the Milky Way to come down, so I would get the kiwi on the mountain, basically, and that's what I called it. I called it kiwi on the mountain for this shot.
So,
but yeah.
So for those who don't know, that's the galactic kiwi, which we're very proud of here in New Zealand.
It's actually not a scientific name, by the way, but it is
what
we call it.
Now, if you spoke about the galactic kiwi to most astronomers overseas, they wouldn't know what you're talking about.
Yeah. But we have it, and it's seen all over the world, whether it's standing upright or upside down or on its back. But yeah, we have a kiwi in the sky. This one here, this is one of my favorite places to go and shoot astro. This is Mount Cook National Park. This is Tasman Lake over to the left there, and Tasman Gardens. So I'm looking south here. This is again another large pano. I think it's about 24, 32 images in total. So you're getting the span of the whole Milky Way across the valley here. The glow down here was aurora color, but it was only visible to the camera, not visible to the naked eye, unfortunately. But I was still happy to get it. But yeah, it was a pretty amazing. Like, I remember just sitting up there because it took about half an hour to shoot this one image, and I just let the camera go, shoot it. And you just sit up there and you all alone. There's no one in miles, and no one came. I didn't see a car or anything. I was the only one up there, and all around the mountain that you can hear things coming down the mountain, falling down the mountain, like avalanches behind you up high in the mountain. So, and then the sky above. And the interesting thing here is, once your eyes adjust, it's quite bright, and you think, where the hell is this light coming from? And it's actually coming from the night sky. It's the stars illuminating, the earth around you. So it's quite a bizarre experience once your eyes do adjust, and you can see quite well.
So, with these photos, how important is it that the moon is not around?
This for a photo like this, it's very important. I don't usually shoot I do shoot astro when the moon's out, but usually I don't shoot astro when the moon's out. Obviously, because moon, it's not a light pollutant, but you don't see the stars as well, and you can't capture the stars as well. Sometimes I do shoot moons in the early stages of the moon cycle, when you just get a little bit of light from the moon lighting up your landscape, and you can expose for the moon and the Milky Way at the same time. And in fact, even when it gets closer to the horizon, it almost looks like a sunset or sunrise, because it's so low, and the light is going through all that atmosphere. And if you can get the Milky Way above, it's quite an amazing photo to take. So I definitely don't count myself out of shooting during moon, like towards full moon. But yeah, you're not going to get the detail in the night sky like this. But I like these days, I am actually trying to go out and shoot under moonlight and see what I can do differently. And it's a challenge, but yeah, I'll keep trying.
And just have you look at that image there. For some people who are wondering, there's those two little bright spots just below the Milky Way. That, of course, is the large and small Magellanic Clouds. And I'm just wondering if you can see 47 Tucanae there.
Yeah, you on the full image you probably could.
Yeah.
Once you zoomed right in.
So
but yeah, the Magellanic Clouds is obviously southern hemisphere objects. You don't see them in the northern hemisphere, and I have a lot of jealous friends in the northern hemisphere wanting to come south to photograph them because they've never seen them. And it's quite interesting. The people in the northern hemisphere, that you get lots of questions. Oh, what are those things? So.
Yeah, for those who follow my articles in Hibiscus Matters and online, often mention the Magellanic Clouds. So those are the ones that I'm talking about. If you don't know what they are.
Cool. Where else? My God. Oh yeah. So New Zealand, love New Zealand. Spent a lot of time around New Zealand and shooting photos, which is an amazing place, and a lot of people are certainly jealous of us here in this country. And we are so spoiled for choices shooting astro, but it's always good to go overseas. And this trip here was my first trip to the northern hemisphere, like far northern hemisphere. So this is Norway, Lofoten, and this is 2013. So I was asked to go on to run a workshop, an Aurora workshop, which I'd never shot the Aurora before. So I had to learn quick in Norway. And it's like, yeah, we'll fly you to Norway and you come and shoot and then you go home. And I was so excited. Not every day you get to go and do these things. So never having really seen a naked eye Aurora before, and let alone photograph it, I was a little nervous because I didn't know what to expect and to photograph as well. And we got there and we turned up at the place where the Aurora guy is going, and he said, oh well, I'm not too confident of seeing any Auroras at the moment. We had a Japanese film crew shooting a documentary on Auroras, and they may have got one over the past month, and they've just left. Going, oh God, here we go, an Aurora workshop and no Auroras. So anyway, we jumped in this guy's van and we drove for a bit. And as you drive along, you sort of have these expectations, and you think you see little things outside of your peripheral vision. And then all of a sudden, these things just came out of nowhere, and this is literally just shot up in front of us. We've all yelled, "Stop the van!" And this is just us pulled over the van on the side of the road, and everyone's gotten out and started shooting this Aurora here. And I decided to take a photo of everyone doing it. And I think there was only one person in this group had ever seen an Aurora before. So everyone was just totally blown away by it. It was an incredible experience. So I was quite lucky to experience that. And that wasn't the only Aurora we saw that week. It's like every single day, it was just out of control. It was in December, so we got there and the sun was just above the horizon still. And 2 days into our trip, the sun disappeared below the horizon. So we never saw the sun again. So you get like a twilight around 10 a.m. and then by 3 p.m. be totally dark. And we were having dinner, and it really throws your body clock out, by the way, when you're in dark most of the time. And we're having dinner around 4 p.m. in this restaurant, and literally the sky just erupted and there was auroras everywhere. And we basically just left our meals, almost stood up and said, we're out of here. We don't care about eating. We're going to start shooting. And this is one of the shots from that night. I called it Aurora in the mountain because it was coming out of a mountain, but this thing was incredibly fast. The way it traveled across the night sky, you just sort of watch it and go choo, 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 choo. And it's so cool because I got to see really fast auroras, really slow auroras, and auroras look like light shows in the night sky. It was pretty amazing. We did shoot a little bit of time lapse there in Norway, although not too much. But I'll play you a little clip. Yeah, the Enterprise wasn't actually there, of course.
That
we
was
didn't have much.
fantastic.
Yeah, well, we didn't have much Aurora footage, so we thought we had to end it somehow. So we put an Enterprise in the frame. Yeah, the things you get up to when you're overseas. Yeah, so that was Norway, and I got an email on Facebook. I can't remember the year it was, but basically, this guy emailed me through my photo page on Facebook and said, "Hey, my parents own a luxury, game reserve camp in Kenya, and we also have one in Tanzania. Can you come over, all expenses paid, to shoot some photos and run a workshop because we want to start astrotourism?" And I didn't reply to him for about 3 weeks because I thought it was too good to be true. You don't do these too good to be true. And he emailed me back and says, "Did you get my email? Have you thought about it?" And I was like, "Well, are you serious?" And I was like, "Yeah." So anyway, off I went, and I went to Africa, and we sort of came up with a bit of marketing for this, and we called it the Art of Night Africa, and we had a little workshop, and we basically just drove all over the Masai Mara, finding locations to shoot at night. They were on a conservancy, like a private conservancy, so you could go anywhere at night there and photograph, which was quite an experience because at night all the animals are out, including lions and giraffes and everything. So it was an incredible experience. I'll just play a video we came up with to start with.
I never exactly knew what to expect when I began this journey, but now I've experienced it, my life has been changed forever. What you see in the photographs doesn't even come close to the real thing. The landscape, the wildlife, and the people awakens your soul. This is a place you need to experience for yourself.
Yeah, so it's quite an amazing place, and Africa is certainly a place that I didn't have the desire to go necessarily, but this changed, and I ended up going back 3 or so times to the same location, and it's a really incredible place, and it's not only the landscape and the animals, but it's also the people that really change your life in a way. So I'll probably just go for a few photos. This is where I was staying. It's called Bush Top Camps, and you stay in these amazing little camps here, and they're all luxury camps, and you're amongst the conservancy, so you can see the animals out there, like they're just there, and they roam around the campsite, which is quite incredible. Especially at night, you lay asleep in your tent, and you can hear the lions roaring, like didn't seem too far away, and just the vast views from your tent, and it's just like you're in the middle of nowhere, but you've got this amazing location, and the animals around you, and as I said before, the people, they're really crazy and amazing, and it's a life that you would never live here, like in New Zealand. So it's so good to go to places like this and experience the difference. Here I am. I got roped into doing a jumping competition I thought I was doing well, but the Marseille were much better jumpers than me, and luckily, because if I'd won this competition, I would have won a marriage to one of the women in the village. So it's probably good I didn't win. But they're so hospitable. It's like they invited you into their homes, and it's incredible the way they live. Like, these are basically huts made with straw and elephant dung, and the parents sleep in this room here, and this is where they cook and heat, and everything happens in the middle here. And I was sitting on the kids' bed, and when I say kids, I'm not talking about 1 or 2 kids. It's like 5 or 6 kids sleeping in an area of the same area as the parents here, and then off to the left or off to the right here was where they kept the goat. So it's just to experience that. It's like, wow, the way they live, and so how humble and happy they seemed, and the kids. This moment here, we basically rocked up at the village. We were looking for locations to photograph, and they had an idea we'd go to this village and try and photograph something. And the kids were just so excited by me turning up in the truck, and they ran out to join in, and they wanted to know what was going on. I don't know if the parents were too happy, because it was probably about 8:30 at night, and they're probably supposed to be in bed. But the cool thing was, this is one of the moments. Like, I'd set up my camera, and I was trying to line up for a shot, and this is just a test shot. And you can see up here the glow in the sky. That's actually the galactic center of the Milky Way, and that's how much light it was outputting. It's almost like a moon up there. But as I was shooting the shot, the whole family came out of their little home here, and they turned the torchlight on for just long enough to illuminate them and not overexpose them. So it was a pretty cool moment to capture. I was very lucky to capture that. I also went and visited the local school just up the road from Bushtop Camps. Bushtop Camps, they do a lot of charity work, and they put a lot of money into this school and buy things like computers and generators and just schoolhouses. And in this particular case, they had chairs and desks, which they'd just been donated. So they were really excited about being donated these chairs and desks. So they invited us up to see the chairs and desks. And I thought I'd take my camera up and take some photos and things like that. And the kids were actually, quite interested in what I was doing and my cameras. And I sort of said to the principal, which was showing us around, I said, well, hey, have they used cameras before? Do you think they'd be interested in learning how to use a camera? And he says, oh, no, they haven't had this experience, and they've never really taken photos of the camera. And I said, well, okay, well, how about we come up in a day or two, and you pick some of the kids out that are quite interested in taking photos, and we'll do a little photo tutorial for them. Nothing much, but just something. And that's exactly what happened. And we made a little video of it, so I'll play that video now. Look at that. That's great. Fantastic. Okay. Now your turn. You're the model. Ready? 1, 2, 3, jump. told you they could jump. They
Oh,
learned from an early age. There's quite a few beautiful moments in that small amount of time that we spent with them, and it made me understand more about their culture versus our culture. You may have noticed earlier in the video that the girls were standing behind the boys in a line. They were never standing next to each other. And of course, I wanted the girls to join in, like, come closer, girls, come closer. Why can't you stand here? And the deputy principal who I was with, he says, oh, no, we can't do that. Like, girls cannot come up and stand next to the boys. It's not on. So it's obviously a culture thing, but we eventually conned them into doing it. And when the girls lined up with the boys, the girls looked one direction towards the boys and the boys looked towards the girls, and the biggest smiles on their face. It's like something so simple like that. And they were just so happy. So it was really cool to experience those kind of things. Yeah, the locations were quite amazing. This is actually in the Serengeti, so this is just across the border from Kenya in Tanzania, and it's a very different place over there. There's lots of rocks. There's a lot more trees, whereas the Serengeti is a lot more open plains. So there's some interesting locations to shoot at. They call this Simba Rock. Simply because Simba is lion, and usually lions stay at the top of this rock here. So when we arrived, we have Maasai warriors looking after us just in case something happens, and they'll go and check out the rock, see if there's any lions there before we went up. So thankfully here it was safe. But here's
it's Mark G here,
a bit of a
from the
local
night, and we're in the
Facebook
Masai Mara
live.
in Kenya, and we're running live here with Bushtop Camps, who's got this fine vehicle, and it's taken us out here, and we're following the migration. I'll turn you around here, and there you can see that's Joseph, our Maasai warrior. He protects us from all these beasts out here with teeth, especially at night time. We've been running across quite a few lions out here, and it's been amazing. We've been getting photographs with lions. Yeah. And
I think the video
it's daytime now, as you can see, but there's a few clouds in the sky. But hopefully later on tonight, we're going to go and shoot some more lions, or giraffes, or elephants, or whatever we can find. But it's been pretty amazing here. I'll swing around here. We've got a few guys with us. Yeah, there we are. Here we go. And there's
you have to listen to the audio because I have no control.
And look at this guy over here.
That's all frozen here.
Ernesto, yeah, I can see him. Look at him. He's in his camouflage gear. He's just ready and up to go.
We are in the great migration.
That's right. We came across a cheetah before, which was pretty amazing, and we watched it chase after a wildebeest or something, and the speed it went at was absolutely unbelievable. Like, I saw this thing take off and I couldn't keep up with my camera. It was just incredible. I think it would have hit, like, how fast do these cheetahs go? How fast?
110 kilometers.
110 kilometers per hour.
Okay, so we have a bit of a technical issue here.
But thankfully, his Titan had a rest under the tree.
I think we just have to wait for the end of the clip, and then I can hopefully gain control. Perhaps.
Yeah, because I've lost even your picture.
Yeah, just hang on. Try to grab control again. Unfortunately, I may have to jump out and jump back in.
Oh, that's fine. I think Brenton's still there.
Okay. Well, you keep everyone occupied, and I'll be back in a minute. I'll just have to restart.
Okay, everyone. So Mark will be back shortly. It looks like we had a bit of a technical difficulty there, so I hope you're all enjoying this. I do have a number of questions that I see in the chat that I will ask them. So, coming from Africa myself, you do get these beautiful skies there, as you can see in most of those pictures. Especially on the summer days, you can have wall-to-wall blue sky. It's kind of similar to what we had here last week, actually, which is pretty good. So if you pop outside at night now, We've got Mars that is coming up a little bit later, which is looking really, really good. Of course, Jupiter and Saturn directly above us, and of course those Magellanic clouds you can see with your naked eye, which is pretty good. So let me see what is happening. I think they're still trying to get in. But there's a lot to see at night at the moment. I always like this time of year because springtime things are warming up a bit. I really don't like going out and look at the stars and the icy cold. But always, I find this time of year is quite nice because you get sort of the best of the winter skies, best of the summer skies, and usually pretty clear skies because it's still cold up there, so you don't get the distortion. So if you guys are wanting to do a bit of astrophotography, kind of like Mark style, yeah, most of your DSLR cameras are capable of this. It's actually quite easy. Just need a tripod, and I generally find a remote control is also pretty useful to have, because sometimes just using your finger just to click the button is enough to create a bit of a wobble. But even with a relatively poor camera, you can actually go out and get some really good images, particularly if you're using the stacking software that he mentioned. The one I use is called Deep Sky Stacker. It's for Windows and it's free, so pretty good to see that. If you are interested in that, I know Brenton is going to be starting up an astrophotography group as part of the Hibiscus Coast Astronomical Society, and hopefully we'll be getting that off the ground soon, starting off, of course, just with your camera and then progressing to adding telescopes on as well. So all sorts of different types of photography you can get into, from the landscape ones like Mark is famous for, to kind of what we also see with filming nebulae and planets and things like that. I'm just wondering with participants. Okay, you're back.
Kind of. I'm just going to set up again and hopefully it won't be long.
Great. Okay, I could see you there. Just your video is just off at the moment.
I'll get my video up and running. I'm just going to set some settings and I'll be in there shortly.
So yeah, as I was saying, you can use any digital camera, even a relatively old one, to do all the basics of getting sort of a Milky Way shot. Of course, the trick is once you get bitten by the bug, you want to buy more expensive cameras, better lenses, and so on. Of course, if you go to the deep sky route, then you look at getting telescopes and all sorts of things like that as well. So it can be quite an expensive hobby, but it is a very enjoyable hobby as well. Seeing all that beauty of the night sky out there, you never get tired of that. We're quite lucky up here, even in Auckland. For those of us up here, we've got the two islands, Waiheke Island and Great Barrier. Of course, both vying for dark sky status. I think Great Barrier has dark sky status now. But even if you are just here on the Hibiscus Coast, a very nice spot is to pop down to Shakespeare National Park, and you can go in there at night. So just make sure if you're going in the car that you go before the gates shut. Once the gates are shut, you can get out, but you can't get in. But that's a pretty good spot for sort of your beginner astrophotography. Of course, you can sort of go up a little bit north as well. There's a number of places up towards Warkworth and Matakana, which are also brilliant. Ah, there you're back.
Oh,
Welcome back.
Let me see if I can screen share now again. All right, can you?
Okay, there we go.
Oh, so you can hear me, you can see me, you can.
Yeah.
All right, screen sharing. Hopefully that was weird. I don't know what happened there, but it wasn't great. Yeah, but if you want to continue with what you're saying, or
Oh no, it's just filling in some time there. Yeah, just letting people know, that it is accessible to you pretty much wherever you live. There's always somewhere dark that you can go to nearby. That's the joy of living in New Zealand. Even up in Auckland, sort of a 20-minute trip, and you can get into a dark sky area and start your journey on photography.
yeah, I haven't spent much time up at Auckland shooting astro, so I must get up that way.
Next time you're up this neck of the woods, I can give you a list of places to go to.
Oh, that sounds amazing. I can keep talking. Finish up. It's up to you guys. Probably have a little bit to talk about still, but
yeah, go ahead.
All right. So where were we? We're in Africa, and I'm still in Africa here. So this image here is in the Masai Mara. We got special permission to be in the park at night because you're not usually allowed to be there. And I was shooting a time lapse, and the problem was that to be there, we had to have an armed ranger with us. And when we got there, to the location, we had no armed ranger. So I wanted to shoot a day to night time lapse. So I had to start shooting. So I said, I can't wait for the armed ranger. So anyway, what happened? They dropped 3 of us off, Robin, my host, and Joseph, the Maasai warrior who was looking after us, and myself. And in this photo, Robin had his camera behind us, and he was just shooting photos. And the time lapse was going, and we're just laying under the stars here. And it was quite an amazing experience because you could hear all the animals around you, and like you could even hear the lions. And I thought the lions were getting closer, but thankfully they didn't come too close, although one did. But at this point, it's like, Joseph, he goes, "Oh, are you scared?" And it's like, well, no, I'm not scared. And I think he was joking with me. He said, "Well, you should be." And I said, "Okay, well, what happens if a lion comes? What do we do?" And he says, "First of all, I throw my cloak." And I said, "Well, why would you throw your cloak?" And he says, "Because it has my scent on it, and the lion will go there first." And I said, "Well, what do we do?" And he said, "Well, we run towards that tree." And I said, "What do we do when we get to the tree?" So we climb it. And I said, "But hang on a minute, can't lions climb trees?" And he says, "Yes, but we might be able to buy enough time." And I said, "But isn't there vultures at the top of that tree?" And he said, "Well, what would you rather, vultures or lions?" So it was an interesting conversation, a little unnerving. But not long after that, the vehicle came back and with the armed ranger, and we jumped in there and just hung out for a bit until the time lapse finished. And when you're in Africa, you get used to it. You kind of forget that you're in Africa. And you treat it like you're in New Zealand, so you just get out and walk around wherever you want. And the time lapse had finished, I knew it finished, so I instinctively got out of the car, just jumped out of the vehicle and started walking towards the time lapse to pack up. And as I got out, I turned a light on, and what happens is there's 2 little eyes that lit up right in front of me there, and it was a young lion just had come over to see what was going on. But thankfully, Joseph sort of jumped out of the truck and chased it a bit. And as it turns out, I was just interested. Wasn't going to harm us or anything like that. I was more scared of us than anything. But we drove for a while to see if we could find its pride. We didn't really find anything, but that's certainly one experience I won't forget. This here, they have some amazing trees in Africa with these really crazy shapes, silhouette shapes. This is right next to Bush Tops camps on their property, and I found it and I thought, oh, that looks a little bit like a mouse. The shape of that tree. So that's why we shot it, and then calling the image Milky Mouse. So that's something to do. This is another one. This is an old abandoned village. No one lives here anymore, but the Maasai guys that were there with us were happy to pose in front of us, and we'd had a fire going behind us, like a low burning fire. So that's what the glow is in front of us here, and then we had a lantern hidden behind the doorway here, so it just illuminated that area here. And he's smiling, he's got his big teeth. We ended up getting a mural in this shot as well, but it wasn't until I started processing this thing, and if you look over here carefully, I'm not sure if you can see it, but that's a giraffe over there just hanging out. You can't really see it until you see the bigger image, but there's a giraffe there. This one here, this was on top of Simba Rock. So this is at night on top of Simba Rock where the lions go and hang out. And actually, remember I talked about the moon, shooting with the moon. This is exactly what that image is. So the Milky Way is there, and that's the moon setting. So you can get some quite effective moon, like you're getting some really lovely light on the rock from the moon. So definitely go and shoot Milky Ways at night on the earlier moon cycles. And if you can, wait till they get lower to the horizon, because you get this beautiful warm glow out of it. And when we went to Africa, there was so many ideas, and I just had in my mind, I just didn't know what to expect or what to shoot. But one of the ideas was obviously animals in a Milky Way shot, and we went out every night trying to photograph something, and we thought, oh, well, giraffes would be a good animal to shoot at night, not shoot with a gun, but photograph at night. I can't use shoot in Africa. Photograph at night under the Milky Way, and we spent 3 nights just trying to chase these giraffes around this conservancy in our vehicle. They would stop for a second, eat, and then take off and move on. But on the 3rd night, we found that these giraffe it was like an open area, and they were just like resting. So it was like they weren't going anywhere. So I thought, okay, I'm going to sit up and I'm going to try and get this shot. And thankfully they didn't move too much. So this was the actual photo we got. Some of them bent over. There's a bit of ghosting on this one where he bent over, but the rest of them stayed fairly still for the 30 seconds. I'd shot quite a few images to get this one, of course. But yeah, I was really lucky to get this image. And that was one year. I think that was the first year I was there. The second year, it was like, well, what are we going to photograph now? We've done the giraffes. What else can we get? And there was quite a few lions around at night at this point. So we thought, okay, we'll go out at night and see if we can get a lions under the Milky Way. And we had no idea what to expect. We found them, and it was quite incredible, because you go out and they'd be hunting at night. So you could drive right by them, and they'll be in the long grass stalking the prey, and it's just incredible to watch. And we got really close to them. It's amazing how close you get to these animals. Anyway, we were looking for the lions to shoot, to photograph, shoot, and we got a call on the radio that some of the other rangers had spotted some who had just made a kill of a wildebeest. So we rushed down there, and I shot a little video of that experience. The lights, just so you know, the lights that we use to illuminate, the animals and everything like that, they have a special filter on it so it doesn't upset them. So that's what you'll see here.
No.
Oh shit, they just killed it. Elang dia deh. You want me to go for it? Let's let them be for now.
Yeah.
Oh, that's amazing.
What's so killed?
They literally just killed it. Yeah, even though he's still alive. Yeah. Oh my god. Who would have thought?
Wow. How many lines are in there?
Ah, there's more. Oh no. Wait, how many are there? 3.
Is she suffocating the
Yeah.
kill? They're not fazed by us at all.
Yeah, so that was a pretty crazy experience, and you know, just to show how close we were. This is me in the vehicle setting up for the shot, and it was literally 3 meters away from these lions eating their kill. So it was certainly a crazy experience.
Luckily, they were very distracted, eh?
Yeah, well, actually, one of them actually got up and sort of walked away and walked around the back of the car, the vehicle, and I sort of was a little worried because I didn't know where it was going. So I sort of followed it around and looked out the other side. And just as I was about to come out the other side and put my hand down to sort of steady myself, I virtually almost patted this thing because I walked straight past the vehicle. I would have taken my hand out. So that freaked me out a bit. But the actual photo I got from that was this one here. So, you know, didn't have much composition to work with, but I was certainly happy to get a lion and their kill and a bit of the Milky Way above. So it was certainly something I'd never done before, and probably something I'll never do again. It was a crazy good experience. And that was the whole thing about Africa, is you just go and do these crazy experiences, like doing recce's. You're out for 8 hours looking for location, and you're cutting through bush. Like the Maasai in the trucks would cut through bush if we couldn't get to a place, and they'd spend an hour doing so. And we were quite lucky because we're with the Maasai, they took us to this location, which is a cave, and it's like a place where the young men would be a coming of age kind of thing. So they come here and camp out at night, and tell stories and sing, and you know, they live off the bush. They go out and get their kill, and they cook it on the fire, and it was an amazing experience. But to get there, this was about a half an hour walk through the bush. So there's no fences. There's animals all around you. So that's why we had these two guys here with their rifles just to keep us safe. But it was certainly crazy. And the thing was, I got to hang out in this cave while some of the Maasai come and they came and they lit a fire, obviously no matches, just with a bit of dung and a bit of friction, and they would stand there and they would sing their songs. So I shot a time lapse of it, and I also recorded the audio as well, or I think Robin recorded the audio of their singing. So it was pretty amazing. I'll just play that now. Yeah, so that was Africa. I haven't been back for a couple of years now. I definitely want to go back there, but you know, if you get the opportunity, it's definitely worth going and experiencing. But you know, there's some really cool stuff to experience in New Zealand, and one of the most amazing things I experienced in New Zealand, well, it was kind of New Zealand, but it was flying from Dunedin down to the Antarctic Circle to see the aurora, the southern lights. And it was something I certainly never done before, and it was the first flight too. So a lot of people had never done that before. And I actually ran a workshop, an astro workshop on board, which was quite crazy. I'm sort of in the comm and trying to teach people how to take photos. Obviously, there was people on the board that knew how to take photos. Otherwise, they wouldn't have paid the money to be on there. But there was also people just were interested in just watching the aurora because they'd never really seen it that way before. And I came, like, I do a couple of charity things as well. So I like to give others experiences because I'm quite lucky to have the experiences myself. So I brought this girl down who was part of Make-A-Wish Foundation, and her wish was to be a photographer, and she was very interested in astrophotography. So I basically flew Dad and her down, Rebecca, and gave them a seat on the flight so they could come and experience it. So I made a much longer video called Rebecca's Wish, and again, it's on my YouTube channel. But I'll just play you a little part of that. Yeah, that was the craziest flight I've ever been on in my life. It was a chartered flight, but it was run by Air New Zealand crew. So all the rules still applied. You had to have 7 kilos of carry-on, and you can imagine photographers have got a lot more than 7 kilos of carry-on. So as people are just trying to get all their gear on the plane at once. And when we got it on there, they were quite strict. You had to seatbelt in and everything like that. And then people tried to pull down blankets and put them up in the windows. And the air crew were going, well, what are you doing? You can't do that. You can't do that. So they weren't allowing anyone to block out the reflections of the lights. But once they saw the first photo of the aurora, they said, oh, quick, do you need a blanket? And they started handing people out blankets, and people are getting out duct tape and taping up the windows, and so they could take these photos. It was just, and walking around the cabin, like you saw that time lapse there, just people all around the cabin. So it was a crazy flight. It was so good. So again, if they have another, I'm sure they'll have another one, but when they have another one, definitely, if you can, take the opportunity and go and do it.
So I've got a question.
Yes.
Actually, it came from a while back about
when I was out.
about the aurora, the Northern Lights one.
Yeah.
He was asking, what were your individual shot settings for the time-lapse shots?
That's a really good question. So what I learned before I went there was for aurora, you have to shoot a lot shorter exposures. Simply because they're bright, but secondly, you want detail in the aurora as well. So I was shooting between 5 and 10 seconds. Under normal astro, I'd be shooting around 30 seconds back then. I shoot a lot less now, but it was around 5 to 10 seconds, depending on the brightness of the aurora. And that's to try and capture the detail without too much, because they move fairly fast, so you get a bit of blurring in the sky. But that's about it.
And another question that someone asked, who said, have you ever considered using your skills in photography for deep sky objects through a telescope?
Yes. I definitely have thought about that. But I've experienced it. I've been to places where there's been telescopes and actually taking photos through the telescope, but I get bored very quickly because you have to collect so much data, and then there's so much processing time. I just like to take a photo and see the image and go, wow, that looks great. I'm going to process that and be done with it. I like, there's some of the photos are absolutely incredible, and I really love looking at them, but I just don't think I have the patience to actually shoot those things. But yeah, maybe I will. Maybe I'll want a challenge, and it certainly would be a challenge for me. It's not a simple thing, but I just enjoy going out there under the night sky and getting a landscape with the night sky behind it. That's what sort of the challenge for me. Oh, with WorldPix? Yeah, so WorldPix, they basically they're a charity, and they're based in the US. But they have like ambassadors all over the world, and I'm one of them. So basically what happens is they sell you prints, and they will donate money from the prints to the communities where the photo was taken. So there's for New Zealand, I chose the Women's Refuge as one of my charities, and Variety is another one of my charities. So every print that is sold in New Zealand, a percentage of that goes to either one of those charities. For my African photos, they do the same over there, and they've sold quite a few over there, and they donate to various charities as well. And that's essentially it. Like, that's the basics of it. Is you sell a print, well, they sell a print of yours, and they'll donate to charity.
So if someone wanted to buy some of these prints, where would they go?
Well, it's funny though, I used to sell prints, and I used to sell a lot of them, but I sort of got to the point where I spent a lot more time wrangling those prints, and like I did use automated services as well, but it was something that I sort of lost interest in doing. So now I don't sell my prints as such, but you can buy them through WorldPix, and you can certainly get my prints through there. But personally, I don't sell them. I license my images. That's pretty much all I do now. I just because I'm just so busy with the photography side of things, and then I've also got the work in the film industry as well. It just gets crazy. But yeah, every now and then I'll do a print, but rarely do these days.
So if you want to, anyone out there, get one of these prints and help support one of these charities, if you pop onto the artofnight.com website, just right at the very bottom, you'll find the link to WorldPix. And yeah, definitely worth supporting those charities. So what's next for Mark Gee?
I don't know. I'm shooting a lot more time-lapse these days. I'm trying different techniques, and I'm shooting astro time-lapse and trying different techniques with that. And I'm also shooting non-astro time-lapse and trying different techniques as well. So I think now it's challenging myself technically and pushing the boundaries as far as time-lapse is concerned. I still definitely do go out and shoot astro. I really enjoy it. But yeah, I always try and find new things to do. I've got a couple of films on the go as well, like personal films, which aren't your, produce in 2 months kind of film. They're like longer term projects. So I've been working on one for a year at the moment, and it's just takes time. There's a lot of work involved with it, but hopefully one day I'll release it, and we'll see what it's like. I still do workshops every now and then. Like I just spent a week down in Mount Cook and did a workshop with 8 people, which was 4 days, and it was amazing. We had clear nights every single day, every single night, and it's the first time I've ever done a workshop where it's like 4 days of just perfectly clear nights. So that's pretty cool. But yeah, generally I keep busy. Like I work in the film industry. I do the projects there, and then I'll have some time out where I'm not so busy, and then I'll go and shoot my astro. So it's it's a bit of balancing and doing different things like that. Obviously, I can't travel overseas at the moment, but yeah, hope to get back. I'd hope to get back to Norway again. I really want to go and explore more around there.
So have you ever thought of going down to Antarctica properly and doing a shoot there?
I have, but you have to go for 6 months if you want to shoot at night. There's no pop down for a weekend and come back kind of thing. I definitely I want to go to Antarctica in the summer months. You can certainly go down there on a boat and experience that within a week or 2 or 3. But yeah, it's a bit more of a commitment for the night sky, but it would be quite an amazing experience, I'm sure.
So what is your top destination that you would like to go to?
Yeah, I haven't done Canada yet. I really like to do Canada, and I'd really like to go to the remote north in Canada and just explore some more remote locations. For some reason, I like cold places and I like scenery. But I haven't experienced that enough, and I think maybe if I did, maybe I wouldn't like it so much. But yeah, definitely Northern Hemisphere to do a bit of that.
That was quite funny. In the break, I was just telling the viewers how much I really dislike astrophotography and astronomy in the winter time because it's so damn cold.
Yeah.
And actually, I find spring is usually the best time around now because it's starting to warm up and the skies are still quite nice and clear. You're not getting that heat coming off the land to distort everything.
Yeah.
But thanks so much for coming on, Mark. We'll definitely have you on again. And I think once we get our astrophotography group up and running, we might even try and get you up to do a little workshop up in this neck of the woods.
Awesome.
We'll treat you to Shakespeare Park and some of the nice areas around here.
Very nice.
To everyone else, thanks very, very much for joining us. And don't forget, next week we have a very special guest coming from Canada to join us. It's a members only one, this one, and it'll only be on Zoom, so there won't be a YouTube stream on that one. Keep watching the Facebook group, you'll find more details there, and I'll be emailing that out as well to members, so we could have a good look at that one. So to everyone out there on the internet, thank you for joining us, and I will be letting you guys go now. Thanks, guys.